Truth is subjective. Facts are not. Opinion is subjective. Facts are not. What do you tell yourself that helps you remember this important distinction when it comes to selling and sales? One issue I come up against all the time with clients, friends, family members, and myself is the propensity to believe that your truth, that my truth, is true. Belief does not make your truth factual. The very first guideline of the easier way to sell has helped me recognize the times I was sharing my truth or my opinion instead of relying solely on the facts and sharing those instead. Take the next statement, digest it, and have it become part of the mental process you employ to establish a symbiotic relationship with fact-based reality. Here you go. Just because you believe something is true, that doesn't make it true. It just makes it true for you. You see, we all have filters through which we process information, and these filters tend to overpower the fact of the matter. For instance, and this is the simplest explanation I've heard. Imagine yourself wearing a pair of glasses all the time, and I'm talking about 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and it's every year. Now, how does the world around you occur if the lenses in your glasses are yellow? If you're wearing your yellow lens glasses and you look at a wall that's painted white, what color will the wall occur? The wall will occur yellow. And if I ask you to swear on a stack of Bibles what color the wall is, you would say, well, it's yellow. You perceive the wall to be yellow. Yellow is your truth. You view your approach to selling and sales through a similar type of filter. Now, as a salesperson, you know what you've been instructed to do by others or from books that you've read. You've experienced what works for you or doesn't. You have your truth about selling and act accordingly. You believe the frustration and stress you experience when you sell that way are just part of the job. But here are a few of the truths about the sales process you've probably learned. These truths are not entirely factual, but I'll bet that they're true to you. First, you must give your complete presentation as soon as possible because this provides you with a better chance of making a sale. The second one is you must educate your prospect about the magnificence of your product. And the third one is objections, as crazy as they make you, come with the territory and you must learn to overcome them. Depending upon your filter, you may believe any or all of those statements to be true. Those statements are not factual. However, those statements may be true for you. Your response at this very moment triggers your emotional relationship to these truths. You may think I'm nuts for saying that, well, when you give your presentation early in an appointment, it costs you more sales than it buys you. You feel that way because of the filter through which you're viewing or hearing my statement. Take off your yellow-colored glasses, and a new world will appear before your very eyes. If you've listened to the first 10 episodes of the Close the Deal Without Selling podcast, you've been made aware of my teachings. And newsflash, most of the facts I teach are counter to your truths. Your truth is giving your complete presentation as soon as possible provides you with a better chance of making a sale. The easier way to sell says you must only give a presentation after the prospect has told you what they need to hear or see for them to buy. This is accomplished by giving them only information they think they need to know from their point of view rather than your point of view or your company's point of view. Now, your truth is that you must educate your prospects about the magnificence of your product. The easier way to sell says you must never educate a prospect. That's right. You must never educate a prospect. You must only educate your clients. Your job is to get information from a prospect, not give it. That's how you uncover what it is you'll present. And here's a third truth. Objections come with the territory and you must learn to overcome them. The easier way to sell says objections occur because your prospect takes issue with something you've told them or shown them. Just as in our second example, stop giving information in favor of getting information. When you ask the right questions and really listen, you create an environment in which your prospect will tell you the reason they believe your product or service will solve their problem. If they can't or won't, move on. However, when a prospect responds to your well-formed open-ended questions, they are telling you how and why they believe your offering will solve their problem. And they will. Your prospect is in essence the one giving you the sales presentation. And if your prospect is the one giving you the presentation, they can only object to themselves. The reason I labeled these as facts rather than my truths is based on this communications rule. The meaning of your communication is the response that you get. And I promise you that the responses you get when you use the easier way to sell will make your sales experience, well, not to mince words, easier. The easier way to sell will help you turn your contacts into contracts more easily and more often. This system for communicating in the sales environment will help you increase your business by 20 to 50% over the next 12 months, and that's guaranteed. Here are two things I suggest. One, take off those darn glasses. And two, learn the easier way to sell. You already know how to sell, so I'm urging you to make a few shifts in your communication and your language that will help you close the deal without selling. If you want your own copy of the Easier Way to Sell guidelines, please go to our website at closethedealwithoutselling.com and download the free preview of the podcast action guide. And voila, the list of guidelines is yours. Good selling. Really looking forward to, I believe, some of the stories, some of the anecdotes that we'll be able to come up with in our non-rehearsed conversation. Somebody wrote me last week, wrote to the podcast and said, "Do you guys rehearse or go over what you're going to say? It sounds so organized." And I went, "Oh boy, thank you." I wasn't expecting that comment. So, here we go. Ready, action. Yeah, here I am in Hollywood. So, what I want to know is starting off the conversation about sales and selling, the internal dialogue that each of us carries around when we go into sales or when we think about sales and selling. I'm curious, and this is not a test, I'm just doing this to find out. When I say the word, well, what word comes to mind when I say the word salesman?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ike. When I think about sales, I think matchmaker, problem solver, uncovering and listening to what are the needs, the wants, the desires, challenges, hopes, dreams, aspirations of someone else, and then figuring out how do you play match to that solution.
How do we get people to think in those terms? Because
Yeah.
I have to be candid with you. With me, if I go back, what now, 50 years, and I would say you maybe 20, 25, and I asked you the first word that comes to mind when I say the word salesman, a lot of people go directly to used cars,
Yes.
pushy,
Yes.
lie. And what's really crazy is in these programs that I've conducted now all over the world, I would ask that question to audiences and I would get those answers. What you answered is obviously we've had conversations in the past and you and I
think similarly about being a problem solver and helping people rather than identifying yourself as a salesman or a salesperson. But a lot of people think in terms of used car, et cetera. And I tell them it's amazing with that internal dialogue that they can sell anything at all. So what I'd like to find out as a human being who was programmed the way the rest of us were, what brought you to the world of being a problem solver and has you look at what you're doing as a way of really contributing and helping people?
Yeah, so I grew up, both of my parents worked for a Department of Veterans Affairs. So they served the veterans who served our nation in just a servant capacity. My father was on the recreational therapy side. My mother was on the Office of Inspector General, Department of Women's Veterans. But I just saw that example in, night out. My father has just a giving spirit. And my dad grew up in the projects of Baltimore City, the inner city, where there wasn't a lot of positive things going on. And track and field was his ticket out. But I can just tell you that seeing that example of them helping, them serving people, and they weren't salespeople. My dad was a recreational therapist. But what I learned is, and this was from early on, Lawns by Larry. I was 12 years old, I think, going out there, knocking on doors, handing out my flyer, that when you help people, there's just no better feeling. And actually, even before that, my parents used to volunteer me. They told me I had to volunteer at the VA to help our veterans. And there's just no greater feeling on the inside that when you're fortunate, when you're blessed to be able to pass those blessings on to other people. And in sales, it's just a bonus that you get compensated, that you receive monetary value back. The more people you help and the more problems you solve, the more you receive back. It's like, whoa, I want to be the most super helper that I can possibly be, because it's a win-win-win. They win, the company wins, and you win. There's no better feeling. So just like you said, I'm sorry to cut you off, but when we could go to the mall, the young lady or the young man that wanted to squirt the lotion in your hand, and it's like, no, I'm not Ashy Larry today. If you called me over the weekend, I needed some moisturizer, but you're barking up the wrong tree. So essentially, sales is really about solving true problems that people have.
Well, even in that situation, had they been trained to ask uh, how you know how much how often do you deal with dry skin, or how, is dry are you dealing with dry skin right now? You might want to try this, and just disqualify the people that go, no, my skin's fine, and then you're not squirting this stuff and giving Kleenex to clean it. I remember that. What an illusion to bring up. And I'm going, oh yeah, I remember that.
Square, square.
Really. And people applied for that job. But that's okay, because they did provide a service, and I have to bring myself back to that every time I get into going, oh yeah, somebody had to do that. Yeah, they performed a service. So when did you finally get into quote selling?
10 years old. My younger sister was born, Tiffany Nicole Long. And I was used to being an only child. And all of a sudden, all the attention I used to get went to this cute little baby girl. So I said, let me go ahead and sell myself and the value I bring with jokes. And I learned how to tap dance, and I learned how to do some magic tricks. They call me Black Magic. So essentially, I had to learn how to sell myself, but professionally.
That's
Now
so
you
cool.
see me, now you don't. But professionally, Lawns by Larry. And then really my next sales job was making $150 for a CPA. We sold software to CPAs and accountants, and $150, that's a whole lot of at-bats, and that's a whole lot of strikeouts. I know that you talked about the passing of Tommy Lasorda, such a tragedy, but there's so many parallels to the game of baseball, to this game we call sales, as well as this game we call business, as well as this big game we call life. You better learn how to overcome those strikeouts. You got to learn how to be mentally tough. And you said it earlier, you got to learn how to ask the right questions, not just of someone else, but even more importantly, of yourself. We were talking about goal setting. That really is an exercise in asking yourself the question of, what am I trying to accomplish and why?
Yeah, and how to maintain your outcome rather than your position at any given moment is, to me, one of the really powerful character traits of being able to carry on when you don't feel like it.
Yep.
And that to me is just marvelous. It's interesting that you talk about baseball, and I know how dear it is to you. In the video that I just put out about goal setting, I talked about how a small, I mean, an incremental change in your quote closing average, your sales average, the number of people that have been affected positively by you, your product, or your idea out of every 10. And I described it as it related to baseball batting averages, talking about what's the difference between a 270 hitter in Major League Baseball and a 310 hitter. And as of 2020, it's $5 million a year in average salary. And these are two pro athletes and they're willing to pay someone $5 million more for only failing 69 times out of every 100 tries rather than 73 times out of every 100 tries. So you just need to be a little bit more effective. You're closing 4 and you close 1 more, you've increased your business by 25%. Go out and help more people.
That's it. And
I'm done. I'm off my soapbox.
You hit it. I love that because the little things mean so much. There was a study that was done of horse racing. I'm a gambler, but not horse racing. But they looked at the times of the number 1 horse and the number 2 horse over the course of a season, and they were separated by tenths of a second. Then they looked at the earnings, and the earnings were different by millions of dollars. So that just shows that the little things mean so much and have an incremental return, just like you said on that batting average example.
I heard the same thing about golf. That if you look at it, the number of strokes or hits that somebody takes, it's really small, like 1.5 separate the top 10. And it may even be less than that. I heard a funny story about a group of Japanese people who were just so happy because they kept hitting the ball, and an American golfer went over and asked and said, oh, they feel that it's silly that the one who gets the lowest score wins. The one who gets the highest score should win because it's so much fun to hit the ball.
I agree. And I don't know if
you go, duh. Oh, okay. That's a new way to play.
I don't know if I shared with you. I'm Tiger Woods' cousin. Did you know that?
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, they call me Larry Hit It in the Woods. I'm his long lost cousin.
Long lost cousin. Pow. That's funny. So what challenges did you come up against, even though I'm sensing that the challenges may have been few and far between, but as a fellow human being, I have to suppose that there were times you got frustrated and maybe even a little bit stressed out during this, for the sake of clarity, the sales process. Yeah. What story or what situation can you share that would help enlighten us?
Yeah, so in my first professional sales job, $150 a day to CPA, certified public accountants, and just public accountants. They get paid for their time. So a cold call is not a value-added activity for them. I think I had one scheduled meeting in my first, I'm not good at math, but I think it would have been in my first 600 calls. And I was talking to people. I was talking to gatekeepers. I was talking to CPAs and accountants, but my pitch was terrible because I thought I had to be buttoned up. Hello, this is Larry Long Jr. calling. They're like, nope.
Marvelous. Take care, Larry.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for calling. God bless you and good night.
What a great voice. Goodbye.
I had one CPA, he said, "Hey, Larry, here goes what I want you to do. Put on a pair of concrete shoes and jump off a bridge." I said, "Oh,
Yeah.
Lord." I said, "He's
Yeah,
telling me to
really.
kill myself." They didn't go over how to overcome that objection in our manual. So
No.
I said, the first thing that came to mind, I said, "God bless you too."
Yeah. Well, there's a perfect example of how people get their internal dialogue about sales and salespeople, especially, what happened today, honey? Oh man, some guy called me and he started to talk to me about something I could care less about.
That's right. That's right.
Oh,
But what I learned, Ike, through that example is that people are people. And I was putting them up on a pedestal. And when I really looked at it, just like you and I are communicating, just like I see that you're an Ohio man, you're a Browns fan, you're a the Ohio State fan, you like the Beatles. I mean, we can find some commonalities where we can come to an agreement and we can agree to disagree, but it's going to for me, it just lended itself to better conversations. And it wasn't just a hello, this is Larry. No, this is Larry calling, and I'm calling because I'm passionate about the people that you serve, small business owners. Are you okay if I tell you a quick story? And when I shared the story of how my baseball and softball academy was no longer, they instantly got it. Not all of them. I'd be lying if I said all of them, but essentially that was really my, I guess you could say, my silver bullet. Yes, sir. Yes,
you do.
sir.
You only need a few. And then to really be at the top of your game, you only need a few more.
That's it. That's it. Like you said, the little details mean so much. So that really set the base for my professional sales career. And when you're getting so much rejection, when you're getting beat over the head, and I've got dents in my head from how much I got beat up, you learn to get mentally tough. And you realize that when folks say no, when they hang up and they have choice words, it's not you. They're not mad at you. You're just the messenger. And it's like, hey, I can only control the controllables. I'll move on to the next one. There's an inscription on my bat that my team they made for me, and it says Team Fido. And the Fido, not for my dog. I'm afraid of dogs. I got bit when I was younger. I guess the dog liked dark meat, but essentially Fido stands for F it, drive on, because we're all going to get hit with obstacles. But essentially, we've got to find a way over those obstacles, Ike. We got to find a way around them, under them, and if we have to, boom, right through those obstacles, or else we might as well just give up. You might as well just wave the white flag and just give up.
Well, I came across this with selling because it's not that I hate rejection. I hate the word no. And the conversations that took place because you had to be the same with every person because you had to prove, it's like you go out, you have to prove yourself again. And I despise that in selling because each time it was a new show. And I hated to think of it as a show, but that's the way I got through it, playing the part of a salesperson. And I did very well. But that's what brought me into this realm of avoiding giving that presentation until somebody could prove to me in their own words that they wanted to hear what I had to offer. And the reason that they decided to allow me in was because in their mind and in their heart, they truly felt that I was there to solve their problem instead of mine.
Yeah, that's the
And
key.
some people have this natural ability, and some people don't. And they're in there and groups. And I get networking people who sell at networking events, whether it's on Zoom or in person. You say hello and they go, here's my brochure and let me read it for you. I've got 30 seconds. And people just don't get that nobody cares. They don't care about you. They don't care about what you can do. They don't care how you do it. All they care about is what you can do for them.
That's right.
And you have to find that out. And that relieves you of so much pressure to have to go in and say, if you'll just please let me tell you what we do, then you can decide whether or not you love me and understand our magnificence. And it just doesn't work that way.
Not even close.
Sitting there and you're a crutch salesman and they have a broken leg and you go in, they'll go, just give them to me. Just give them to me.
I love it. I love
So
it.
what's the biggest thing you've learned about selling and sales?
That we're in the people business, that it's all about relationships. And I know that you know this, the difference between contacts, people you know, and contracts, people you do business with, is that letter R. And it's true, genuine relationships built off of trust. And that's really what it comes down to. Do people trust that you're looking out for their best interest and not your best interest?
That to me is it in a nutshell. Is I talk about in my action guide about Zig Ziglar, and that your job is to help others achieve their dreams. And I misquoted him, but that's what it meant. And really, when you look at having to pay mortgages and having to pay utilities and car payments and all the other responsibilities that, we're all in sales. So people who do it professionally, they have to sell to live. And so a lot of them at any given moment are really not thinking about their prospects' problems as much as they should be. They're thinking about, man, I got to sell this. I got to sell it now. And people can see that from a mile away.
They can smell BS from a mile away. It's kind of like what you talked about in networking groups where someone immediately sells. It's like, no, you got to show me that you know me.
I like that. I've heard them all, and I don't remember hearing, you got to show me that you know me. Pow. I love these talks.
No doubt. No doubt.
So if there was one thing that you would say to the listeners of the Close the Deal Without Selling podcast that would have them be more effective as either a salesperson, a problem solver, or a communicator, what might that be?
Yeah, this is probably one of my strongest tips. I've got a couple tricks up my sleeve, but
go, you're on.
You've got to be surgical. And what do I mean by that? When you go to the doctor generally does a SOAP note: subjective, objective, assessment, and plan. Larry, why are you here today? What's going on? How long has it been going on? Okay, thank you. Let me go ahead and get the tongue depressor. Let me do my own objective assessment. Let me go ahead and put together my assessment, and then let me write the prescription. Take 2 of these and call me in the morning. As sales professionals, we've got to be surgical in our questions. Mr. or Mrs. Prospect, walk me through your process. What's going on? Why? How long? Who does that impact? Are you okay with it? If you're okay with it, then hey, we don't need to be talking. Are you ready to take action? Let me go ahead and let me do my objective analysis now. Here goes my assessment. Take 2 of these and call me in the morning. That's what I would recommend. We've got to be surgical, and really we've got to be sales doctors. Is there a doctor in the house when we go through our sales process?
Well, one of these days you may see the guidelines for the easier way to sell, and one of them is think like a doctor. There are about 19 more, but that's one of the big ones. Be curious, be authentic, be neutral, which is exactly what you were saying.
Yes.
And if you can ask those types of questions, that's one of the things I did when researching to put this model together. I really looked at different professions that used questions as their means of enrolling. Rather, because this is really an enrollment conversation that ends up with a sale, but so is getting someone to join the YMCA.
So true.
So how do you create that communications environment where someone is able to see past you going, come on, come on, come on. And they're saying, I really think this is a good idea for me to go in there. And you go, really? I'm kind of surprised. Share that with me. When you say it, it's selling. When they say it, it's true. So the only way to have people say it instead of you is to ask questions. And you are so on the same path to communications effectiveness that I champion, and I do my best to stay on it myself. So, are we brothers?
Brothers from another
Are
mother.
we sisters? That I don't think so. Uh, I was talking with another consultant for the podcast, Michelle Heck, and she's about my daughter's age. And so I just became enamored, and I asked her if we were sisters because, again, I've been so fortunate to be speaking to people who are enlightened about communication. And I always like to say enlightenment is really the power to lighten up about it and
It's
just
wonderful.
realize that it's a two-way street,
Yes.
that you can tell whether or not someone's interested in what you have or not. Quit banging them over the head with the baseball bat. That's our job. We get banged over the head with the baseball bat. But for the most part, job, it's service. And it's easier to get out of bed in the morning saying, who can I help solve a problem today, rather than, oh gosh, I have to go sell again.
So true. When I
Yeah.
look for sellers to add to my team, I have a little acronym called EPIC. I look for their entrepreneurial spirit, their ownership and accountability. That's the E. The P is preparation and planning. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready, Ike. The I is that internal drive and desire, ability to overcome those obstacles. And then the C, you mentioned a couple of them. I've got four. Number one is communication. And the most important part of communication is listening. It's by design that we've been blessed with two ears and one mouth. Can you hear me now? The other C is confidence. There's a comedian that I love, Kevin Hart, who says, say it with your chest. The next one is curiosity, just being naturally curious. And then the last one is care. I call that the give a dang factor. Do you actually care, or are you just there just to be there? If you really care, it's going to shine through in terms of not just what you say, but how you say it and how you act. So those are the epic things that I look for in sellers. And then there's intangibles, positive attitude. If you're a negative Nancy, negative Nelly, ain't nobody got time for that. Integrity without compromise, because you're going to have situations where you can choose that way or you can choose that way. I want people that are going to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. Integrity, it's doing the right thing when no one is watching.
How open are you to a couple extra C candidates?
Oh, I would love it. I'm going to take notes. Give them to me.
One is courage.
Courage.
And I define courage as action in the face of fear, not action without fear.
Love it.
I get people who tell me how great they are at cold calling. And I said, what do you feel like before your first call in the morning? And they go, no problem. I said, that's not courage. You're good at it. God bless you. I'm not taking anything away, but the person that's ready to throw up before they get on the phone and they get on anyway, that's courage. And the next one is character.
Character.
And character is the ability to carry on, especially when you don't feel like it. So if you take courage and look what you have to do and character, and you put those together, you really are dealing with the core issues of the type of person that can follow through on the C's that you mentioned.
I love it. That's another C. That's a champion right there. I love to work with champions. I love
just
it.
An old dog spouting out what I've been saying for years.
I love it. Courage and character. Love it.
Yeah. And people say commitment, but commitment without a goal commitment by itself is really not quite as valuable. Neither is motivation. You know, people can get all motivated and you go, so what are you going to do? And they go, I don't know. And that's why one of the things I talked about in this goal setting conversation is, you know, do you have a goal and is it stated in the positive? And then I'm putting together the follow-up. It's a two-parter with two ways of reaching goals or setting them. One is to use SMART goals. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, specific,
Okay,
measurable,
so
yep.
yeah, specific, measurable, and something called the structure of results. And it's funny, I have some old YouTube videos from 15, 20 years ago still floating around on YouTube of me talking about those because I think they're so important in setting reasonable outcomes. And, you know, if you can look at your goals as a project rather than some, oh my gosh, I've got goals. No, I've got a project. And, you know, here's the project. Here's the beginning, the middle, and the end. And what questions can you ask that will assist you in knowing where you are in the project and what you can expect. And you can actually put that together with 5 easy questions. So it's called the structure of results. And how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, the
Tell me.
best way to connect with me is on LinkedIn. Larry Long Jr. on LinkedIn. I got a smile for a mile. I got a face for radio. I do a little midweek, midday motivational minute every Wednesday, either recorded where I post it, or recently I've been going live where folks can interact. And it's always a message of inspiration and positivity, which we all need at this time.
We really do. It's a crazy time. Would I be putting you on the spot if I asked you for some part of a minute, a whole minute if you'd like, of inspiration and motivation?
Oh no, not at all. Not at all. I mean, really, the topic that's on my mind right now, it's early January. We're rolling into the new year. The biggest thing that I have for folks, and there's a lot of factors, but the number one factor, and I have this thing called me monster. I don't like to work with me monsters. Those are folks that wake up and all they care about is that person in the mirror. Me, 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 me. I like working with you monsters, but there's a balance to it because before you can be a you monster and help out other people, before you can put oxygen on them, you got to make sure that you get your oxygen. So I encourage anyone that's listening, anyone that's watching this, to make sure that you're taking care of your MBS, your mind, your body, and your soul, and making sure that you're in great shape so that you can then maximize the impact that you can have on your colleagues, that you can have on your prospects and your clients at the maximum level. You got to make sure you take care of your house first before you go out there and help other people. So your MBS, let's go ahead and step our game up. Let's make sure we're getting good sleep. We're drinking water. We're feeding ourselves, not just good food, but also good books, good podcasts, good things on the TV, and surrounding ourselves with great people. That now sets up the good base, the good foundation for us to build upon and have success in 2021 and beyond.
That's great. That is so right on. And I want to remind the listeners that we discussed a condensation of that by asking the question, who are you being?
That's it.
Are you someone who is doing what's necessary to stop smoking? Or are you declaring yourself a non-smoker and you do what non-smokers do?
That's right.
And it's that difference of someday, maybe if I train myself, I can get to be the person that I need to be in order to do X. And I'm inviting all of you to take on what Larry's saying about be that person now. The question is not what do you have to do in order to take care of what you need to take care of, but who do you have to be? And when you ask yourself, I mean, it's a declaration. And at this time, it doesn't go unsaid that nobody knew how to do this country that, had the Declaration of Independence. So they wrote up a guidebook, and it was called the Constitution. That's what everybody should do. You should declare yourself to be, and then write yourself up a little personal constitution of not who I'm going to be, but who I am. I am someone that does A, B, and C, and I do it on a regular basis. I care about my family. I'm fiscally responsible. I solve people's problems. And I got to say, my friend, you solve people's problems. And I can't thank you enough. You've been uplifting. You've been funnier than, am I allowed to say heck? Yes, I am. And I really appreciate you taking time out of what I get is a wonderfully busy schedule. And know that if in any way we can be of assistance to you, or you could use some assistance from either me or our listeners, please let us know.
I thank you so much, Ike. The pleasure is all mine. And please know, you and your listeners, anything that I can do to serve as a resource for you, do not hesitate to call. I'd gladly assist where I can.
Great. Look up Larry Long Jr. on LinkedIn and connect with him. And he's a buddy of mine, so you be nice to him. Larry Long Jr., thank you so much and take care.
Thank you, Ike. Peace.